Aloha. We're in the district of Kahikinui. And what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is a little bit about safety and alakai, or our roads, our navigational roads that we used thousands of years ago to navigate our way from Hawaii to Tahiti and back. And these are one of the roads. Behind me is the Alanuiaha Channel, which is in Hawaii is probably our most dangerous channel, which connects to the Kealakahiki Channel, which is our path to Tahiti. If you look at the ocean speaks a language. It's a language that we as Polynesians understand. It's a language that we come to recognize, and it's also a school of language. What this ocean is teaching us is how to read the water, how to understand the currents, how they flow from island to island, and how each swell, wind, wave talks to you so that you can begin to understand and gain knowledge of any place that you travel through. And then it becomes second nature, where you're able to look and recognize and read the ocean and understand the language. And I think we're just beginning to rediscover this language as a people. It's been in our genealogy for thousands of years, and we're just beginning to reacquaint ourselves or tap back into that knowledge, that style of knowledge. And so, it's we've just begun. We're seeing more and more of our keiki speaking Hawaiian fluidly, and for me, I cannot speak Hawaiian, but I can speak the language of the ocean. I feel comfortable. I know it. I listen to it, and it's a school of language, and just understanding what that is allows you to make good decisions, whether we go or we don't go. And I think that's where patience comes in. Understanding yourselves and not having to deal with the pressure of going. And as leadership, I think for guys like Nainoa, Bruce, and our captains that are going to come in the near future here, this is just part of the process. This is part of what we have to learn, so that when you take on that leadership role, your leadership is dependent on keeping everybody safe, and not have to worry about feeling the pressure to go is the lesson today. So we're not sailing to the equator or to the doldrums just for the fact of what you see. There's no sense in us jeopardizing each other's safety and going out there and breaking parts in the canoe, possibly losing somebody overboard. I mean, all of the above. If you look at this ocean, it's telling you something. Today is not the day, boys. So today is not the day that we're going to go, but we're going to take the opportunity to come here and actually study and look and talk about the trough, the crest, the closeness of the wave, or the gap of the wave, and how it changes from as we move further down the coast. From Kahikinui to Kanaio, the ocean changes. From Alanuiaha to Kealakahiki, all of these things that have been passed down for generation and generation of mo'olelo is all part of the process. And we all play an important role in understanding that process, and also being part of the next mo'olelo going forward. How do we teach? How do we sail? When do we sail? That all is so important to keeping the crew safe. And when you look at this, today the winds are gusting at 40 miles an hour. The winds are gusting at 40 miles an hour. If we were to sail today from Maui to the Big Island, we probably would turn around. But that is the part of the knowledge that we're beginning to understand. And that is in today's society, we're so dependent on time. Everything is all about time. But when you think back 1,000 years, time was not a factor. Paying attention to your environment was a bigger factor than time. And so that's what we're learning today. We're learning that we don't want time to be the factor in making a decision. It should be patience, waiting for the right moment, waiting for that right moment that the winds and the seas talks to us and says, now we can go. And that's part of the process, and that's what we're learning today. And you know, if you look behind me and you see how close the swells are together, and I mean, I'm getting wet from sea breeze right now, and that tells you how strong the wind is. When you look out there and you see like the smoke on the horizon, that's not smoke, that's sea breeze. That's sea breeze, and in the language of navigation, we call that smoke. We call that smoke, and that tells you that off in the distance, off in the horizon, the wind is really strong. And so even if this swell wasn't here, even if this wind wasn't apparent to us right here, and we seen that smoke on the horizon, either one or two things. The wind is coming, or we're going to the wind. Where the wind is there's a leading edge, and we're going to go into that leading edge of where the wind is. And so that's the kind of language that we're learning. We're learning our old navigational seaman Polynesian language in our terms. And we let it talk to us. We let Kanaloa tell us about the ocean, about the seas and what it's teaching us. And this is a great classroom. And because Kealakahiki is probably, in fact I know it is, Kealakahiki is the oldest migration, navigational path in Hawaii. Kealakahiki is what brought us to Hawaii. Kealakahiki is what took us back to Tahiti. And this is in that district. This is part of that district. And so there's many lessons to be observed and learned from this place. And it's everybody learns in their own way. Everybody understands this language in their own way. It's in your na'auao. It's there. We just got to reconnect with it and become in tune and in touch with it and understand it, because that's what's going to keep you safe. When you become in touch and in tune with that, those are the things that's going to keep you safe. It's all about trusting your instinct. It's all about paying attention. It's all about observing. The greatest lesson that you can have for your time on the canoe, you know, a lot of people ask, oh, how was your voyage? And a lot of times, it's drawn out. Nothing really happens. But there's a lot going on. If you pay close enough attention and learn from all the little things, like right now, this is a predominant wind swell. The swell's coming out of the east. We could be far away from land and not see this predominant swell, and all of a sudden we see a swell coming out of the west or coming out of the south. That's what, when you can read that, when you're away from land and you can read the predominant swell and see in between the lines and see the swell coming out of the south, now you're learning. Now you're starting to see the language. And being able to recognize that, the naked eye, the common eye won't be able to recognize that. But the more time you spend at sea and just feeling the way the canoe rolls and tilts and does this, you begin to see it. It becomes apparent to you. You see this predominant swell, and all of a sudden there's another swell coming from the other direction. What is that? What does that tell me? Is there a storm coming from the south? Is there a south swell coming from the south? Because I notice predominant swell is always here. That's always there. But it's being able to recognize the other stuff that happens in between is what's going to make you good at reading the ocean. This is a language. This is an art. This is like Hawaiian history, Hawaiian language, but this is the language of the sea.